Brothers and sisters, this is your brother from another mother. Welcome to this broadcast. Gonna fix some things here. Hold on just 1 second. There we go. How's everybody doing tonight? Excellent, excellent, excellent. I am well, although I'm battling something. I didn't sleep well last night, and I'm fighting off something. So I thought about today's live, and I said, you know what? For the peeps, I will jump in here and I will go ahead and address questions and have a good time doing it. So if you see me start to lose steam, you'll kind of go, all right, Mark's ready for bed. But it's great to be here with you all today. I love addressing questions, especially ones that perk up in my thinking, like a percolator. Certain subjects that I think are so important for our life and for our journey. So I pray that today you'll be blessed. I've got a number of areas I'm going to cover, from negativity. Is this feeling the voice of God? I think I'm going to address social anxiety. What about the end times and receiving God's love? There's some burnt out stuff, fear stuff. Just can't seem to get through. I have constant setbacks. So we'll see. We'll see how far I get today. So hope you guys are all doing well today. Hope you're blessed, and we're going to have a heaven of a time, and we're going to let God's love and grace wash over us and get some of that thinking in our lives driven out by his love and grace. And we're going to learn what it means to be loved and live in our identity, all that good stuff. So if you want to send something as a super chat, I'll keep an eye out for those. And for the most part, I do like to give priority to the written questions that have been sent in. But welcome for those of you who are watching now and those of you watching later on. If you enjoy these episodes, go to markdejesus.com. Check it out. There's all kinds of stuff there for your healing and freedom journey. I talk a lot about mental health and emotional health and all that good stuff. By the way, mental health is emotional health. In fact, it really should be called emotional health, because when we talk about the mental things, we go to our brain. Our brain needs fixing, right? My brain's messed up. How many of you said that? Mark, my brain's messed up. There's something wrong with my brain. Well, if you take a brain and it's under a certain pattern of thinking over and again, every day, it can become like a torturous process. But what the restoration aspect of it is emotional. It's learning to deal with our emotions. It's first recognizing the emotional toll certain thoughts have taken on our lives. Many of you, it'd be helpful to understand, you don't have a thought without an emotion. When you say, well, Mark, I'm numb right now. I don't have any emotion. Well, they're suppressed, but they're there. We don't have a thought without an emotion. Every thought has a corresponding emotion to it, because you are not robots. You are human beings made in the image of God, in a way that you relate. And God designed us as human beings that as we relate to one another, that the invisible God would be seen in the visible interactions with you and I. That's why the Bible talks about love one another, love one another, love one another over and over again. Why? Because in that flow, we learn how to experience the nature of God. So if you experience a loving loving interaction with me, even in this screen here, and through my voice. Many people say, "When I hear your voice, Mark, it helps me fall asleep at night," and I think that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing, right? And if you experience love in any way in how I'm talking, then that is an honor for me, because I'm demonstrating the nature of God and his relational flow of love in our lives. Because if love gets removed from the picture, then things get really, really out of hand, and we lose our mental health out of that. So anyways, mental health is really emotional health. And you see me write a lot, mental health, emotional health, relationship health. It's really, they're all kind of saying the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing. And we kind of categorize mental health. My brain's busted, so I need something to fix my brain, Mark. Well, your brain is the storage capacity of all the memories, associations, and ways that you saw life, and the way that you see yourself, and the way that you approach life. A lot of it you weren't aware of till you get older and you realize, oh, I shouldn't, that's not a healthy way of thinking, right? And because so many of us weren't raised in homes where we were equipped emotionally. And it takes time for people who have mental health issues to recognize that. They think, oh, my brain's just busted. And what we don't realize is if you take someone and you wanted to like shatter their mental health, right? I'll take you for example. If I wanted to just shatter your mental health, then be very, very easy. You could trap somebody into a room and tell them they can't leave. And then every day, just say manipulative things all day long. And over time, it just wear at you. That's why a lot of, with soldiers in military, they know psychological warfare, how to break down their opponent. Because once you break them down psychologically and their emotional capacity, and for so many of us, you've had a torturer speaking thoughts into your life. Now, it may have been a person that the enemy used, but it can also be you coming into agreement with an inner critic of that voice now becoming an accusatory voice towards yourself. And for so many of the emails that come in, so many of the questions, people are deeply battling with being an enemy to themselves. And because my own healing journey has helped in the restoration of that, I'm learning to be restored unto God in his love for me, in his grace towards me, what Jesus did and what that means in moment to moment life. But I'm also being restored to myself, because what happens to a person when they become abused, neglected, they get under toxic thinking, they become an enemy to themselves. So it's like you become a divided enemy. Why am I so stupid? Why can't I get this done? That's part of that. What is wrong with me? All those statements are you divided against yourself. And you have an enemy. Christians, you have an enemy. The enemy's not you. You're made to think it. You know, preachers say it. I'm my own worst enemy. That's in third nowhere in the Bible. You have an enemy, comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and place thoughts as though they're your own. They sound like they're your own voice, right? And we are in a battle of that. And what I believe one of the foundational things that the enemy is seeking to do is create a disconnect in your life. We could talk about all kinds of lies and this spirit and that stronghold and this thing. We could talk about that, right? If you see me, I can go there. I just don't obsess about spiritual warfare because I don't think we should obsess over it. I don't think that we should be swinging at demons all day long. It distracts us from what God is doing, filling us with his love and grace. Greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world. But it's learning how to actually apply that. But I believe the enemy's tactics are disconnect you from loving relationship from God, because then for years and years and years, you'll feel far from God, separated from him. And how many of you watching this or sending me questions, you struggle with feeling distant from God? And then we feed into that narrative, right? We see that as true. And even though we're being lied to, we see that as true. So then we come up with a reason. We get a reason fed into our system about what the reason is for that. I feel far from God. Oh, it's because of that thought I had yesterday. I feel far from God. Oh, it's because of this thing I did. Oh, I feel far from God. It's because of that thing I haven't gotten truly forgiven of. I feel far from God. So we try to chase number two. Mark, can you help me with this? Let's start with number one. This isn't about you failing and now you're separated from God. And this does come out of a lot of that intense preaching that we get under, of preachers. There's preachers that emphasize sin so much, they get lost in it. Like they're hyperventilating. I actually believe, I'm going to say a strong statement, a lot of these legalistic preachers, they are religiously OCD. It's like that's all they see. Look at that sin. Look at that sin. I got to call it out. And they can use good scriptures. They can be very, very smart, articulate. But there's this angst. There's this, they have disturbance in them. You see it in the anger. You see it in how like they're yelling. We got a lot of preachers are yelling, right? Nothing wrong with yelling, but why are we yelling? Why do preachers yell? I'm going to tell you why preachers yell. Because it's insecurity. We feel like we got to yell to get the point across, right? And I know if you're, sometimes I'd speak somewhere where the microphone wasn't even working. I'm like, come on, it's like anyone out there hearing me? I felt like I had to yell. I was a bit of a yeller myself. And some of that was my hearing issues too, that I realized I lost some hearing there. So I'm overcompensating, but there's a religious OCD in the church today that's hidden, and it sits amongst pastors. They obsess over sins. Jesus paid for that sin. It doesn't mean we ignore it, right? But when you have the victory, you have what's possible within you, and a little goofy little goblin is trying to overthrow, your life, this thing called sin. We make sin greater than God. And so when we relate with people, I did this too. There are certain sins that become like the elephant in the room, right? You talking to the person, it's like there's an issue of something they struggle with. And I remember in my pastoring fighting through it, right? And I was like, I got to address this. I got to address this. And when I would follow that compulsion, things would get worse. When I would just let it be, God, it's here. When I say let it be, I don't mean ignore it, pretend it's not there. I'm going to trust God that you're in this. And when the time is right, it'll be brought up. And time after time after time, God would show himself true and faithful. And when it was brought up, it was time for them to get free from that sin. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. I'm not even feeling 100% today, and I'm already feeling God's glory of breakthrough over my life. It's awesome. It's awesome. But I think a lot of preachers have religious OCD, and it's just hidden because they're smart and they say things really, really fancy, and they throw out a lot of scriptures, right? Satan threw scriptures at people. I'm a word guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm a word guy. I've spent my life going, what's the word say in this? But we have look at what the church has produced in so much confusion and condemnation. And we've left people manifesting spiraling mental health. The Church of Jesus Christ those of you listening to this, I'm not condemning you. I'm talking about the church leadership as a whole. We should be pastors, church leaders. Our churches should be manifesting greater mental health, right? And why do we have the same mental health problems as those who are not in the church? Because we need to come to terms with how we've been relationally relating the gospel to people, how we have been. It's hard work to love people. It's hard work. It's hard work because you got to spend time. You got to roll up your sleeves. You got to be patient. You all know what I'm talking about, right? Those people that are hard to love and you're trying to love them, or those of you that are church leaders, it's hard work because we're growing in what love means. It's really us that are needing to grow in a greater capacity of what God's compassion and grace looks like in that moment. So anyways, that was a fun tangent this evening, this morning in the other side of the world. Some of you tune in, it's this morning. Some of you tuning in, it's tonight. And some of you tuning in, it's another day. So let me get into this. Let's get ready to rumble. Let's talk about negativity. Negative. Are you negative? So this is about Christian complaining. Y'all complainers out there, you complain a little bit too much? We all do, don't we? So, hi Mark, I recently came off of a negativity fast. And the first thing I noticed was how much we as Christians complain about our lives. I'm not sure why that is. Love to hear your thoughts on this. So years ago, I took my church through a negativity fast. We would sometimes fast together, food, and like a lot of churches do. Here's some options, things if you want to join in with us. If not, don't worry about it. But it's kind of collectively we're going to do this. And then I started to go through some patterns in my own life where I was always have this bent towards negativity and just defeated thinking. Just seemed like I just default so easily to that. So I said, let's give it a try. Let's, as a church, go on a negativity fast. Now, you can see the information on that on my website. I have articles on it. There's a negativity section in my library. There's also a course I developed on that, just empowering. It's It's more on the side of just empowerment. Like let's move forward, new agreements, it was very, very helpful for me and for my journey. And many people in the church, negativity. It says negativity, overcoming it. Yeah, it's all there on that page. And then there's a negativity fast free download. And you can still access all that today. So I don't have time to explain all the things in negativity. It wasn't meaning that if something bad's happening, you don't acknowledge it, but it's just kind of an overall period of time where you just abstain and you catch yourself just going negative. And people in the church came to me and go, can we do a food fast? Because this is excruciating. And it was funny because we all realize we're very negative with ourselves, with our family, with our journey. We default to that negativity. And I learned a lot going through that. I learned a lot that I didn't have a great relationship with myself, and I needed to grow in how I related to myself. I was learning about the Father's love for me. I was teaching on it. And there was another level though about me relating to myself. And I realized a couple things in response to your question. You're saying, why do we complain so much? Well, the Bible talks about that, like murmuring, complaining. It becomes like a toxic garbage outlet. And there's some reasons why we do that I can just kind of summarize, not go at length with this, but a lot of it is we relate through negativity. You go and you see somebody in church, right? Hey, how's it going? The weather, huh? Can't catch a break, right? Or like, the economy, huh? You talk with people, about politics that, you're aligned with, and you go, really? Or you just kind of like, if you're sick a lot, it's the aches and pains. It becomes conditioning, and it's how we actually relate to each other. Right? And part of that is it's a way that we can get attention, where we want to relate, but it's a way to get quicker attention. So many people can relate through the negativity of their pain. So they burst their pain out. They write all the time on a weekly basis. People write to me, and you can just see they're spewing just a heartache of hopelessness and despair. What I don't like doing with negativity is judging it. Now, sometimes with certain people, you may find in your journey, you may have to like draw the line, like, you're negative all the time. I can't take this anymore. Sometimes that happens, but I think it's better to start with ourselves first. But we relate to negativity, and what happens is there's an outrage that happens with negativity too. We get upset at it. That's why social media is so addictive, because we get addicted to the burst. We get addicted to the outrage. Something upsets us, so it hits a slight adrenaline burst. So then we go back for more. Did you hear about this thing? I can't believe this thing. I can't believe, and social media is just clocking the dollars, because they're just going, all right, just keep scrolling, keep going, right? And so that outrage becomes programmable. I felt like a negativity fast for me, it set in a new precedent of, I want to be more aware in a loving way of like where I'm setting my thoughts. And I know this can get very obsessive compulsive. There's a lot of obsessive compulsive fasters out there, and obsessive compulsors that write to me, I was in pity and it's so bad, it's so terrible, God's mad at me. And it's like, no, all this has to be looked at in love. There's a part of it where we can look at it militantly, right? Stop being negative. And we become militant about it. And that doesn't produce long-term fruit. You might get through a negativity fast, but you'll go back to the same ways. So we get used to it. Now, the Bible does talk about complaining and murmuring, both in the Old and New Testament. But I'll tell you why we as Christians can get so prone to negativity. There's this principle I saw in Isaiah, and I see it throughout scriptures. There's this thing where we as believers, we bend towards the bad news. When we see bad things happening on the news, we go, oh, the end times are coming. The end times are coming. Will you be ready? I don't know if I'm ready. Are you ready? Are we all ready? Are we going to get ready? Are you ready? Right? How many of you were raised that way? Are you ready? Did you get your heart right? Get your heart right? Is my heart right? My parents used to say, you prepare your heart for church, Mark. I'm like, prepare Prepare. What I got to do? How do I prepare? How do I prepare my heart? I don't know how to do it. How do I prepare my heart? How do I prepare? How do I prepare? What do I do? Right? And it's like, so then out of the assumption, I'd check myself. Am I right? How is my heart? Am I right? You know, if Jesus was to return back today, would you be ready? And we're like, what do we check? What do we check? We check how A, sinful we feel we are, and B, we check for any ounce of uncertainty. And that's always going to lead to a bad place. But anyways, let me pull back to the statement I was saying, is that there's this teaching in the Bible that you see many times. And I'll bring out Isaiah for an example. Isaiah, I forget the passage, what number it is, but he says, arise and shine, for your light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. Well, it's like, wow. When you think of that, you think of like light, majesty, glory, holiness, power, right? Like, arise and shine, for your light is come, the glory. There's so much meaning to this. There's meaning to it in the Old Testament. There's meaning to it in the life of Jesus. And there's meaning to it for the end times. By the way, did you know that? When you read the prophets in the Old Testament, they spoke to their day, the day of Christ, and the day of the church, and the day today. It's wild. It's wild. If we can get out of our spinning and checking ourselves, you know, we could maybe get some of the beauty. So anyways, he says, arise and shine, for your light has come. The glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. Though deep darkness cover the earth. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. The glory of the Lord will shine upon you. It doesn't make sense. That's where I go, God, this doesn't make sense. You just said, arise and shine, for your light has come. The glory of the Lord is risen upon you. Though deep darkness cover the earth. So God has a way. So when Jesus arrived, there was no like big news headline. There was no thing on Facebook going, here, the Son of God is born in a stable. If you were living during that time, you may not even have heard about it. You know, depending on where you lived, right? You wouldn't even know that this happened. And Jesus actually lived for 30 years of his life, just living a normal life, right? So he's basically born in darkness. You're like, wait, Messiah's here, come on, right? Then he makes an appearance, then he dies. You're like, wait a second, I thought this is our king. He's going to establish his kingdom, right? So I'm hitting a bunch of rabbit trails, but there's this aspect of the Bible where you're going to see turbulence. You're going to see darkness. You're going to see an increase. You're going to see signs of the world, earthquakes, famines. You're going to see that. And the picture of Psalm 91 is so prophetic because it speaks to dwelling in the secret place of the Most High. And though you'll look, you'll see it will not come near you. There's an aspect where we have to learn that we're going to see darkness. To A, not be afraid of it, and to B, see what God is doing. Can you see what God is doing in the midst of a moment where it seems like, you know, you're struggling in your mental health, you feel like you can't get it together. You feel like every day you're just trying to get by and you're struggling. You've been divorced. You've gone through multiple divorces, or your kids are acting up and your finances are hurting, all these things, right? And to be able to pause, and this is why God's love is so important, because his love shows care. His love shows he's got us. His love shows us hang in there with the process. I am here. I'm faithful. I'm with you. I will always be with you. Oh, so good, right? And we have to learn how to see the beauty of gold within the moments that seem dark to us. And that's I'm not into that like super positivity kind of thing. You know, something terrible happens, like, bless God, there must be a miracle here. That's not a human. That's a robot. That's a faith robot. There's a lot of faith robots out there. You've seen them, right? Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, but he actually wept. That's another one. Doesn't make sense. How does Jesus, he's going to raise him from the dead, and he weeps in front of the tomb? Because it's a demonstration to us of how life works. we weep with those who weep. And oftentimes in the weeping, we're actually on our way to a breakthrough. Hallelujah. I didn't know I was going to be, didn't sleep well last night, not feeling good. And here we go. Some good stuff flowing today, right? So the final reason I would give to this about why we're so, what was it again? How much we as Christians complain about our lives. That to me is an immediate sign of unprocessed pain. We have not been equipped in how to share a struggle, get it out, process through it, and be able to move on. We have so much stuck in us. So that stuck pain comes out as negativity, irritability, anger. You notice we're all kind of like angry and irritable, and there's a lot of that where there's pain in our lives that hasn't been worked through. How do you work through pain? You identify it, name what it is, you share how you feel, you exchange it with God, with yourself, and just expressing it, right? With someone else who's safe, and you discover things in the pain. Now, what we tend to do is we tend to deny pain. We avoid it. And deniers, the pain catches up to them much later. It catches up to them way down the road. Now, then there's the opposite ditch, which is those who sulk in it, in self-pity. And if you find yourself either in denial, where people say, hey man, you've been through some stuff. A lot of OCDers, by the way, struggle with both. Not just OCDers, many anxiety-ridden, just a lot of us in general can struggle with both. We deny it. We're like, we're fine. I'm fine. So what? I grew up in a house where you might say, I grew up in a house where my parents, I had this happen, but whatever, I'm fine. Dismiss. Then one day there's like a collapse where you just break down, and then you swing right over to pity. And it's like, I can't do this. I can't, right? So I've done extensive work on self-pity, victim thinking, and foreboding. And I would encourage all my brothers and sisters at least once in your life to go through it. In my topics page, it's called Limitations and Blocks to Healing and Freedom. And there's a section there, Breaking Limitations Off Your Life series. And I had such a good time teaching that. They're long form. A lot of the stuff I teach is more long form. I try to do the short ones as well too, but long form because you got to take time to get it out. You got to relate. You got to share. Mark, why do you do longer videos? Because that's how life is. We relate to each other and we sit down and talk. It's me sitting down and being a brother and just sharing with you and letting that just wash over your heart. So denial, self-pity, and the negativity, if you're aware enough to go, man, I'm really negative, it's a sign of a need for healing. And listen to this statement. When you're chronically complaining and spewing out negativity, it is unkind to yourself. So if you catch yourself in this pattern, it says, I have a need to be kinder to myself. I need to get probably some support. Sometimes you go to somebody like a therapist or a coach or whatever, and you go, I just need to, there's been times where I say, okay, I need to share this. Can you just mirror back to me some of your thoughts? Because I need to get it off my chest, so to speak, because I would find that I'm struggling and I'm stuck. And so when I'm stuck, I would have a propensity to go to victim thinking. That's why I'm so good at teaching at it. I'm an expert on self-pity. So I would see that's a sign of being stuck, and emotionally, I need to be able to move forward. It's showing my emotional limit. I can't move any higher because I'm in pity. So this negativity takes us in all kinds of different directions, doesn't it? So hope that helps. Hope it blesses. Be blessed, not stressed. So this next one is this feeling or voice God? I try to use my movie voice. In a land far away stood a young man trying to hear the voice of God, but he's got this feeling, dun dun, and that feeling just won't leave. Coming this December, dun dun, is this feeling God? So let me look here. All right. I've been listening to your podcast recently and started the Heart Healing Journey course on your site. It's been very insightful and eye-opening to many of the things I've gone through. I personally struggle with scrupulosity. You're struggling with your scruples. And I think you may have addressed a couple people on your podcast with a certain type I'm struggling with, but wanted to see if I could receive more clarity, if possible, as is with all my OCD brothers and sisters. Basically, I've had this feeling voice in my chest for the past 7 years. That's you have accuracy 7 years, like on the dot. I've got this thing 7 years. I've marked it down on my calendar. You probably went back and like measured out, right? Like how long has this been here? You've probably went and dissected it, right, in every form and fashion and looked at it. And I take it as either God or my conscience. I flip-flop between the two depending on how it feels, sounds. So it's not God. I can start with that. It's not God, because where you're going to go here, I can see it in the sentences here that I'm about to read. The thoughts are based on fear, guilt, and there's a confusion that manifests from it. And this was one of the things that was very, very helpful for me, because I attributed the gut feeling, the gut voice. Christians talk about that. I had this feeling in my gut. It was like a dread, and I was like, I shouldn't do this. And I was like, okay, Lord, and I was like, okay, so God was giving you the queasies. He was giving you the queasies. So no, God's not giving you a spirit of fear. And we get into all these, maybe God's warning me, maybe it's fear, and guilt. Guilt is tied into a you're not doing things good enough. It's based on religiosity, not true walking by the Spirit, as Paul said. And so let's get honest about this. If I can get honest with you, you're following your feelings. It's like, is this God or is this my conscience? And really it's about, I have this question because the feelings are so loud. And what I have to encourage my brothers and sisters is God is not necessarily like the voice that's screaming, not the loudest voice. And this definitely seems like it's a feeling that comes in very strong. It doesn't have to be to be what I'm talking about. So here we go. It feels great when I obey it, like I'm close to God and loved by him. That's the trap. That's the trap, because now it's conditional love. Listen to the voice, I love you. See the trap? Listen to the voice, do a good job, now I love you. Because the implication is when you don't do it, you're not loved, and I cast you away. So it reveals your punishment-based relationship with God and this tug of war that it keeps you on. So that's the trap. Now, in OCD, listen to me, all of you that struggle with OCD, because I'm going to give you a gem that I've learned that's going to help you tremendously. When you have OCD or scrupulosity, you have a obsession and a compulsion. The obsession is the thought that's distorted, right? And it creates certain feelings, usually fear and guilt, because you got to do something about it, right? The fear tells you, what if, oh my goodness, what if, right? And the guilt goes, something's wrong, what if, something's wrong, what if, what if, something's wrong, what if, what if, something's wrong, what if, right? I could put that to a beat. Boom, 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 boom. Something's wrong, what if. That's obsession. Compulsion is what you do to fix this, okay? This problem here, this obsessive thought, what you do to fix it. For you, the compulsion is, I'm going to follow this voice. When that happens, you are telling your entire being, your spirit, soul, body, your heart, your brain, your emotions, your entire being, this issue is true and I must obey it. I just pretty much, kind of summarized OCD right there. When you do the compulsion and you get that momentary, because it doesn't last, right? it tells your body, this thing is true. This is true. So then no matter what people tell you, you're like, I'm walking in truth. I'm walking in truth. I'm walking in truth. I'm walking in truth. What if? I don't know. Something's wrong. I don't know what, but I'm following truth. I'm following truth. Manifestation, confusion. Right? So I decided to look at the fruit and say, what I'm manifesting is confusing. I'm going to tell you a very personal story quickly. Maybe I'll share it longer next time. This is one of the stages where I realize I got a problem. I was working at a church, the church I worked at up in Connecticut, where I was the youth pastor, growing youth group. There's some great things I learned, great experiences. And there was a point in time where I started taking over the worship ministry in the church, the adult in the adult services, and not just in the youth group. And so there was this transition. The music minister actually left and moved on. And so the church moved me into the position of worship leader. I became like an associate. I hired a youth pastor and then oversaw. It was a lot. When I talk about it, I'm like, what was I doing? It was a lot. So I was involved in hiring the next youth pastor. And I remember we were going to take a step with somebody. And then I had that feeling. Went through everything. And this is what happens a lot with OCDers. You go through the whole process. You make the decision, and then you have this gut feeling, I think I made the wrong decision. I think I need to not do it. You ever buy something, and the next morning you're like, I got to take this back. I got to take this back, right? Or you get into a relationship. I don't think I should be in this relationship. I think I should break up, right? Or in this case, and so I not stormed in, but I went to the office of one of my overseers, the pastor that I was under, and I said, "Yeah, I don't think we should do this." And I remember validated that. Yeah, good call. Now, there are times where, like, somebody with OCD, you seem like, oh, that was a good call. I listened to God on that one. And it's not, you're following disturbance, you're following fear. And over time, keep following it. It drives you into a pit that you feel like. And so part of breaking out is starving the compulsion, and fear, guilt, confusion is not of God. God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. That's awesome. Be still and know I'm God. Yeah, but what about the end times? God? What about the end times? When's Jesus coming back? Am I reading the right version of the Bible? What if I'm in the wrong denomination? Am I deceived? Am I one of the corrupt? Be still. Know that I'm God. He's not giving you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. If I rewound and went back to that place, let's say I was to do a do-over, first of all, I wouldn't be so worried about the stakes. I had this intense pressure to make sure I picked the perfect person. I had the same thing happen when we hired somebody for music. And as I was overseeing worship, and our church did big productions, and we had to hire somebody to help me in this area, right? I'd have that same thing kick up. I'm like, oh, here it is. So I even wrote this in my book, I Will Not Fear, which I encourage everyone to walk through, because it's very simple. It's not like super deep reads, very simple, but it hits at the heart of this battle of what we follow with our thoughts. Okay, so it feels great when I obey it, so you have it in quotes, like I'm close to God and loved by him. But if I disobey it, then it feels like I'm separating myself from God, and fear, depression, anxiety overtake me because I'm not pleasing him. Right. It's showing you have a punishment-based relationship with God, and all the weight's on you to get it right. You got to get it right. And if you mess up, that's it. And so when you starve the compulsion, you will always, there's always going to be this tendency for the kickback. I don't want to say always, that's not true, but most of the time, you're going to get this kickback. You get withdrawal symptoms. You're having withdrawal symptoms. You have this loop that you go into Disturbance, follow the disturbance, make sure I do it. Disturbance again, follow it, make sure I do it. Follow the disturbance, then you do it. So then when you stop that, your whole body goes, what in the world is going on? I'm not safe. I built my safety off of this. And so just be prepared that when you starve the compulsion, this will kick up. But, give yourself try, depending on how hungry you are for change, try 2 months, 3 months without following that voice. Mark, what if I miss God? Sometimes in OCD, people treat God's voice as like a racing airplane that's like flying by, and like we missed it. Like, I want to hear God, here it comes. I missed it. Oh God. Hey God, I want to hear you. I think I missed it. I missed it. That's not relational. If your life with God doesn't reflect how a healthy relationship is, then it needs to bring us to a place of renewal in how we're approaching our relationship with God. Remember what I said, you learn a lot in how we relate to one another. Because what if I treated you like this? Let's take this away from this thing. What if I treated you like this? You would probably lock me up for abuse. Right? Give you this pressure, this feeling. And if you obey, oh, we're good. And if you don't, disdain, you're far from me. Oh, darkness. That's abusive. They'd be like, you got to lock this guy DeJesus up. Abusive, right? So I think I've said enough about that. Since I have a heart to serve him, I desperately want to follow these impulses, so I obsess about following the voice, feeling better. This is a form of what I call spiritual slavery. Your relationship with God is based on what you do for him. It's based on your serving. It's a big problem today because it really tracks well in our modern culture. We love putting Christians in spiritual slavery. Serve. You feel good, right? You feel good. You served, right? Don't you feel great? Keep serving. Dude, right? It feels great, right? I've got this problem. I got this issue. Me and my wife are serving. Maybe you need to serve together. If you serve, maybe you guys could. So we relate to God, and that's what I would do. Whenever I would feel bad or feel guilty or feel like I wasn't far from God, I felt like I was far from God, I would just get to serving and just getting busy. And I wouldn't realize I got a broken heart. It needs to learn how to receive love. And a lot of this is talked about in my book, I Will Not Fear, but I'm also dovetailing into exposing the rejection mindset because it talks a lot about spiritual slavery. And I'm all about breaking the shackles of slavery off my brothers and sisters. Paul said it, you are not slaves. Stop living that. So there's a slavery mentality here. I desperately want to follow these impulses, so I obsess about following the voice feeling, whether it tells me to witness to someone, which is a common ROCD or scrupulosity. Witness someone or pick one snack for lunch and not another. Yeah. Yep. This whole voice we need to throw it in the trash and reboot how you hear from God. And I would say, first of all, we have to remove the pressure to even hear from God, because with obsession, you become neurotic about hearing from God. What's God saying? What's he saying? Is he talking? God, are you talking? What do you want to say about this? And God doesn't speak out of disturbance. God is not in heaven going, you got to get this. I mean, we think he is, because we panic. Look at this times. Look at the world. Look what's going on. The end times are coming. Because we attribute what we're feeling to what God's feeling. That he's having a panic attack up in heaven. And Jesus is going, I know only the Father knows, but can you what are we doing here? God's not having a panic attack about it. His timing and what's happening here. He's still working in his goodness. In his goodness and in his love. That by his goodness, people will turn to him and turn to him in his love and goodness, which will set him, the truth will set them free. And my compulsion is to follow until I feel right inside. You might be new to some of my materials, because that feel right, You all know, if you've been through my OCD, that's perfectionism. That's the just right feeling. So you got some religious perfectionism going on. Just right, but never enough. Just right, but never enough. Seems like I have massive insecurity issues. Obey and I'm safe. Obey and I'm in danger. So you'll have to learn, obey and I'm loved. Disobey and I'm loved. If my kids do something wrong and I withdraw love from them, I'm not a healthy parent. Second of all, a good parent doesn't hyperventilate over every little issue. That's called a helicopter parent. God is not a helicopter father. And OCDers treat God like he's a helicopter father. Go left, you should buy this, get those Doritos, don't get those Doritos, get the Cool Ranch Doritos. You disobeyed me, get the spicy nacho Doritos. You missed it, get the Sprite, no, double cheeseburger. Shouldn't have got the double cheeseburger with bacon, just to get with bacon. Right? Helicopter parent. It's like somebody's like, Johnny, no, wait, whoa, go, no, what are you? God is not a helicopter parent. Write that down in your journal. God is not a helicopter parent. So I try to starve this compulsion by not listening to it, but then I feel dead and lost inside. So starve the compulsion. Let me just rephrase that a little bit. It's not about not listening to it. It's not obeying what it's saying. I'm not encouraging la 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 la, because you see the thought, oh, there it is, but you're now going to be more loving to the thought in the sense of I don't have to listen to that. And I'm going to I talk about the gentle redirect. You redirect yourself and redirect your focus. But it's tough when that disturbance is there. You say you feel dead and lost inside. Yeah, that's OCDers when they're healing. They go through a stage where massive emptiness is there because it reveals their broken heart. It reveals their empty, neglected heart. They've not been loved. And so they need an infusion and a deep experience and journey of not a hit, a journey of learning to be loved. And sometimes many OCDers recognize I got depression going on here. And I never even saw it because I was so busy following my obsessions. So I perceive that I'm pushing God away and therefore pushing my faith away as well. That's distortion. That's distortion. You're feeling empty. You're feeling depressed. Let's just use the word depression I'm not diagnosing you. Let's just use that as like a general term. Like we say, I'm depressed. Okay. You're feeling depressed. Then you're interpreting as this means I'm pushing God away. No. There are people super close to God that go through seasons of depression. Yep. It doesn't mean they're far away from him. And doesn't mean you're pushing your faith away. It's actually a great opportunity to have a new renewal in your foundation. This terrible feeling inside might be a sign that I'm coming off the high and starting the detox process. Yes! 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 Somebody give this man a hand. I applaud you. The sign of coming off the high and starting the detox process, which causes me to crash mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. But it also feels like I'm completely disobeying things I think I should be doing, causing me to feel depraved inside. We're always using those hard terms. We go right down to the bottom, depravity. So essentially, I'm not sure how to starve the compulsion subsequently, feeling I'm denying God, yet keep my faith relationship with him and have a seared conscience that I'm going against at times. Yeah, you don't have a seared conscience. That's not what a seared conscience is. I try to tell myself that I'm not truly denying him, but everything within me says that I am. That's the interpretation. So the biggest thing I see for you is you got to fire your interpreter. I talk about that in the distortions. Number 3 there, distorted meaning of thoughts. Your interpretation here. It goes harsh and hard. Depravity and disobedient. I'm in danger. Notice they're all heavy. It's never the OCD interpretation is never, I'm just going through a hard season. It's never. It's like I'm reprobate, I'm hard-hearted, unpardonable sin, I'm not saved. It always just drops right to the deep bottom. And anyways, I think you're doing great. Keep going. I try to tell myself that I'm not truly denying him. Don't argue with the thought. You don't have to argue with the thought. Just keep walking forward. It takes time for this to renew. I can't break through all the fear and pressure. Any tips on how to go about this? Fire your interpreter and learn to practice being loving to yourself. That's because what you shared with me is being very harsh, very, very inner critic, very self-condemning, self-accusatory. So, anywho, I hope you're blessed. I'm going to have a drink of some tea. All right, I'm going to talk about some social anxiety. You have social anxiety, anyone? I know I've had my battles with this. I've talked about this battle. In fact, as I address this, I would encourage you to go to I think it's on my library in anxiety. Let me just pull it up here, what I'm thinking of. Anxiety and worry. I've got books, course material, and there is, hold on, let me see if I can just find it social anxiety. I have a video on 10 tips for overcoming social anxiety. It's a quicker video, and I know that it's not about quick fixes, but I kind of give a summary of some things that are helpful. So, Mark, I'm currently going through a severe battle with social anxiety that is very challenging. I've been dealing with a shaky voice during small group discussions that make it so hard for me to engage in conversation. I tremble. I turn red. My eyes water. I sometimes feel like I might faint. It's almost like being choked. Yeah, you have all the symptoms of how anxiety, especially social anxiety. Fear of speaking is at the top of the list. There's a funny joke that Jerry Seinfeld did years ago, where he said the number one fear is public speaking, and the number two fear is death. And he's like, number two is death, not number one, number two. So he said that means that at a funeral, it's such witty wording he uses. He says that means at a funeral, most people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. It's just such a great joke. So this falls into that. It's actually a very common problem. I'm going to say that up front. Very, very common problem. A lot of social anxiety lies hidden because we have a lot of shame about it. Shame messes this up. When you're nervous and shameful for being nervous, I know it's more than nerves. It's anxiety. I get that. But when you're feeling that anxiety, shame messes it up, because then shame causes you to feel like you got to hide more. You can't share. So I'm here to first of all say that I'm not going to diminish this battle. I get it. This is tough. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to shame you for having this, because I've had the same thing. I have all kinds of moments where I'm in a new setting and I feel goofy emotions and thoughts. And sometimes I can go into full-blown anxiety and go, whew, man, glad I'm out of there. So I get it. I've had tremendous, years ago, tremendous, and every now and then it'll poke up, public speaking, where it would just spin and spin and spin and spin over it. So anyway, I've noticed that my social anxiety is terrible at church. I feel this pressure to have all the right things to say, but I'm often tongue-tied from the anxiety. I think that's what we first and foremost need to release you from. I, as your brother from another mother, I want to release you from this. If it's everywhere, that could be one thing. But if it's specifically in church, that communicates to me a shame layer that's on top of this. Because if we realize I'm nervous and it's okay, it doesn't make the anxiety go away. It gives us room to work on it. It gives us room to practice. So this is my frustration at times with church settings and believers, and I try not to be negative about it. I try not to be critical, but I do want to call out what needs adjustment, because it's in those small group settings, those small settings, that's where the beauty of God is the most. So I've worked with a lot of different types of embarrassment around social anxiety to Well, anyways, let me get back to your question. I feel this pressure to have all the right things to say, but I'm tongue-tied from the anxiety. I'm the opposite of laid back in these moments. I also have a very difficult time eating in front of people because I'm just meeting people because my anxiety actually causes me to overtalk. Yep. Yeah, if this is kicking up, I can understand not eating. If there's times I'm not feeling comfortable in a setting, I don't know that I'm prone to eating. Some people, they eat to make themselves feel better. If I was in your shoes, I would probably be more in the not eating kind of place. So yeah, understand. I have a difficult time eating in front of people because it actually causes me to over talk. So that anxiousness. So there are a lot of people that they have social anxiety and they appear as though they're social butterflies, but really they are anxious and they overdo it. They because they're not relaxed. Being relaxed socially takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice. But I think the shame thing's the big thing here. I also overanalyze the slightest gestures or comments from others and will jump to the conclusion that they think I'm a freak because of the anxiety. Do you have OCD issues? It's just a thought because it just does sound a little bit obsessive compulsive. But this is a shame thing. What's wrong with you? Why do you have this? It's all right. It's all right. If I was sitting next to you in your small group, there's a couple things I would whisper to you while you're in the middle of it. If I was just like, your buddy, your brother from another mother, just like sitting there with you, wouldn't that be great if I could just sit with you in the small group? I would lean over to you and go, trust me, half this group has massive anxiety issues. And you'd be like, no, they don't. They all seem like they have it together. And I'd be like, no, I can see it. It's just, the church is really good at hiding stuff, hiding our battles because we don't feel safe talking about it. We're going to feel judged. So I also will jump to the conclusion that they think I'm a freak because of the anxiety. That's the shame talking. I don't want people to notice it, but it's so bad at the moment that I don't see how anyone could notice. My encouragement to you would be to start with sharing it with somebody in your small group who's safe. If there's no one safe, then wait a little more. But find ways that you can face this. That's part of the exposure therapy of life, is facing that this thing makes you fearful, and allow yourself that it's okay you're not okay. That's the first thing love does. The first thing love does, it says, it's all right. You're not okay. It's all right. I'm still here. God moves to us. We move to him. He doesn't run away because you're having a panic attack. So in that moment, your anxiety is revealing in this area of your life, you need the perfecting love of the Father, like 1 John 4:18 talks about. But shame keeps you from feeling like, okay, I'm not crazy. So I want to encourage you to fire the interpreter. You're not crazy. You're not a freak. Freak. My twin sister has even worse social anxiety than me. I'm grateful we can relate to one another on this matter, but I rarely tell anyone else about it because I don't want to be judged. Yeah, that's all the shame stuff. I don't tell my church community about it because I'm embarrassed and feel they might reject me if they knew how bad it really is. Yeah, I found in all these areas in my life, when I find a place to share it and just let it out, it's a big part of the battle because the shame is clouding all this. Most of the people in my church are so well-spoken, extroverted, and funny. No, they're not all extroverted. They're not, but it just seems like it is. Many of them are over talkers. Many of them have to do a lot of energy. Many people have to try really hard. Others, they've worked through it. And then there are some that they're able to relate because they practice a lot. Some people they talk in social settings in their job all the time, so they just transfer that confidence over to church. You ever talk to somebody in church and you're like, I feel like I'm talking to a salesman right now. You ever get that? Like you get somebody who's like a car salesman, and they just can't get the car salesman out of them as they're talking to you. They're like almost like they're talking about the things of God, but they're convincing you in a way a car salesman says that this Cadillac is exactly what you need. And I found myself, now I've been in many different church settings, from conservative Baptist, non-denominational, Pentecostal, charismatic, the list goes on and on. But I noticed that Pentecostal and charismatics, they have a super spiritual air about them in certain fabrications. Certain people have a certain fabrication that seems unique to them because it's like, praise the Lord, God is good, God all the time. And I feel like when I walk up to them, I can just hit a button and it's like, God is good, God is good. I don't even need to talk to them because I can just hit play and I know what they're going to say. I used to play this game in my head with a few people where in my head, I would go, this is what they're going to say. And yep, that's what they said. There was never a bad day, never a bad moment, never like, hey, I'm going through some stuff. How are you? It was just like this, So I'd be like, can I talk to the real person? So, we want to take away the judgment on yourself. This is something that many people struggle with. And this doesn't say anything bad about you, bad about your spirituality. It's just realizing you're in need of a deeper thing that all of us need. And that is a deeper revelation of love. And that gets practiced in the social setting. We have to practice, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm okay, I'm okay. I'm on YouTube. And I've had to practice, I'm okay. People with their comments and this and that, they send me emails and it's like, oh my goodness, it kind of like spin me out, right? Like there's rudeness and harsh comments. And in the Christian field, it seems like there's just a lot of it. Very like, we're obsessed with calling people false teachers, false prophets, false this, false that. And it's like, do you even know me? Or you heard one sentence and it rattled your religious cage and that you keep people trapped in? So I think that I want to encourage you that this is a shame issue that I think find a practical way to face it and share. Yeah. Most of the people in my church, next sentence, and then I'm over there struggling to just get a sentence out during Bible study, right? This is where compassion is important. Compassion says, you say, I can only get one sentence out. Compassion says, way to go. You got one sentence out. See how this perfectionism like sneaks in, and because it wasn't a complete victory, so you're going to need progressive victories. You're going to need to celebrate victories. Next time, I would encourage you get 2 sentences out. Then 3. You probably have a lot of good things to say. Yeah. So you're in an elite class of people. You're up there with Timothy. Timothy had his social anxiety. And Paul said, you know what? God's not giving you a spirit of fear. And I'm laughing because I'm thinking about the other verse where Paul goes, a little wine is good for your stomach. So that tells us something. Timothy had a nervous stomach. And Paul's like, you might need a glass of wine to help that. And all the Christians have panic attacks. It's there. He's giving him instructions. Sola scriptura. Look it up for yourself. So he's a nervous dude. He was nervous for a lot of reasons. Timothy, if you study him, when Paul talks about Timothy, there's no record of his father. Interesting. In the Bible, the seed was always brought out in somebody's faith. When you see Paul call out Timothy's journey, Paul says, I see your faith in your mother Eunice and your grandmother, blah, blah, blah. What was her name? I don't know. I don't have the Bible memorized, but he doesn't mention a father. That is like never done. There's always, I see the faith in your father. Not that it ignores the woman, but there's always, it's a biblical picture of the seed of Christ, the seed of people's journey. So there's an issue here with his father. Did his father die? What was going on there? Right? He has a nervous stomach, and Paul's telling him, have a little wine. He also is young, and he's way above in the natural. He's over his head because he's like the overseer of people that are probably older than him. And Paul has to say, don't let them look down on you because you're youth. Be an example. So Paul stepped in as a spiritual father, that's what we need for our fears, is spiritual fathering to go, you got this. You have what it takes. Because fathers help break the fear pattern in people's lives. So that was a fun tangent. I'm over there struggling to get a sentence out. I have struggled getting a sentence out too. I have so much to be grateful for, and I know God is with me even in the midst of this battle, but at times it really gets tough. Most of the books I've read on social anxiety say you can overcome it by building self-esteem and exposing yourself to your fears. Sometimes self-esteem is very nebulous. It's like, what does that even mean? How to feel good about myself, right? So from a practical standpoint, lovingly practice. Give yourself a loving talk that says, you know what? This is a battle I struggle with. So when I was working through social anxiety, I would have a little talk with myself. Okay, Mark, going with some people today, you're feeling a little nervy, you're feeling a little goofy today. It's all right. It's right. You're learning to be loved. So today we're going to practice being loved. And every step we take, we're driving out that spirit of fear. Each step we take, we're just letting God work in the moment. You see, those are the most spiritual moments to me. Those moments where you're actually at a gathering, a small group, a dinner party, or whatever. Those are moments where overcoming and breakthrough can be amazing. I expose myself to my fears all the time, but I'm not noticing much improvement. Yeah, you're being harsh on yourself. No, I'm not, Mark. I'm being You're being harsh on yourself because we got a shame factor through all of this. And so it's shaming your lack of improvement. When you shame yourself or are hard on yourself, you struggle to break through. When love happens, it opens up the progress of a slowly, one step at a time, moving forward. I know I have low self-esteem, so I probably need to work on building that up. I appreciate any advice with this social anxiety disorder. So I relate to a lot of what you shared. And so the reason why you hear me saying, I've had that too, it's not dismissing what you're going through in any way. It's me saying right now, this battle is hovering over you and it's disqualifying you. It's saying something's wrong with you because you have this. And instead, just be kind to yourself on this, So let's see. Maybe I'll do one more here. Yeah, I'll do one more here. And let's see. This is about the end times, receiving God's love, I think. Yeah. I'm in my 60s and was raised in conservative Christian bubble and learned correct doctrine as the list of do's and don'ts. Now, please understand, when I'm joking and making jokes, because sometimes people take me as you're making fun of. No, a lot of times when you're making jokes to lighten up. Otherwise, we're going to take ourselves so seriously, we're going to end up in a ditch of seriousness. But there's a lot of heavy weight over certain terms. Get your doctrine right. It's like, okay, like what do you think when you hear that? Get your doctrine right. What that means for most believers is I better make sure that how I see God in every area of my life matches up correctly. And that's like such a burden of responsibility that it just pulls us back into law, And so I believe in having solid doctrine, but I also people feel like they argue about certain doctrines and it distracts them from the core thing of transforming people's lives and bringing the power of the gospel. That's just my take on it. I'm in my 60s and was raised in a Christian conservative bubble and learned correct doctrine and a list of do's and don'ts. My father was in ministry in all his life and loves God, but knew nothing of emotional intelligence or showing affection. So just with these sentences here, that is a recipe for you being incredibly hard on yourself. It could be a recipe to lead you into depression and struggles with depression. It can lead you towards constant religious perfectionism, disqualifying yourself, never good enough. And that's a recipe for depression and feeling like you can never do enough. That's just some of the things. There's a whole lot more. So far, I've been unable to receive God's love, experience God personally, know that I know that I know him. That know that I know that I know, that's an OCD infusing statement. That's that I know that I know that I know. There's no such thing as I know that I know that I know. It's I know. Because if we start getting into that, we're going to start saying, I love you. I'm happy to be here with you. I'm grateful. That inflames obsessive compulsive. So I've been unable to receive God's love. So what I would say to that is, what's your expectation? What is that like? Is it a feeling that you need to have, like God in heaven's just going to overtake you and the wind is going to blow through the room and you're going to feel this amazing thing? That's not the expectation. Part of beginning in learning to receive God's love is just learning who he is as a father and applying that to your daily life. Okay, you love me. You're not fussing over this thing. You're with me. You're here. You didn't leave me. Oh, I feel like you left me. No, you didn't leave me. You're here. You're not a father who abandons us. And 2 is learning to practice. Love is not like a high. Love is actually stabilizing, but it takes time when you've been absent. You're in your 60s. So it's not too late. It's never too late. Now's the time. Today's the day. So the good news is whatever you learn, you can be a huge blessing to those in the younger generations. I recognize and reject the outside and behavior approach that seems to be everywhere. Reject the outside. Oh, like changing people from the outside in? I reject it. Well, I don't know that I'd necessarily reject it black and white. That's a sign of black and white thinking. There's things that psychologists say, and or therapy, or even some of the self-help out there, you go, oh, that's a good thought. That's true. It doesn't mean because they're saying it that it's like anti-God. That's part of the black and white kind of thinking people struggle with. I recognize that. Okay, I do not want a Christianized system religious protocol. So you gotta disdain for legalism. You got to disdain for like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, do this, rules. I want genuine relationship with God. I'm in fear that the end is soon. Here we go. Dun, 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 dun. I'm in fear that the end is soon and I will have failed in what's most essential and won't have fulfilled God's promise for me. There we went off the rails. Right there, went off the rails. So what this reveals is you're trying to receive God's love under duress. God, I want to receive your love because the end times are coming. You ever try to give somebody a hug who's just manifesting absolute nervousness? It's like they don't even know you're hugging them. They don't even know it. Like you're trying to hug them and they're like, oh, they're not even there in a lot of ways. They're spinning. They can't receive. So first thing we want to do is we want to start removing this punishment-based relationship with God, this religiosity. We want to learn to quiet yourself and learn to receive and just say yes. Father, I say yes to your love because you're a good father. And I'm going to quiet my heart knowing that I'm loved in this arena and I'm learning to be loved. And we can't look at the end times through the lens of fear. The destruction and the calamity and all this stuff that we've spin about. It just seeks to disconnect us from God's love, and I'll be there with you forever through the end. He's going to be there with us. I've prayed, I've waited, I desire, but there's some sort of hindrance or blockage or something. What I would suggest is take a look at exposing the rejection mindset. Because I feel like that people who struggle with feeling like they're far from God or where's God, which is really one of the predominant feelings that a lot of Christians struggle with. Feelings, nothing more than feelings. They struggle with that disconnect. And really they've experienced in life certain references of disconnect that they're putting on God. So what'd you think? Did you have a good time today? I had a good time today. This was fun. I had some good revies in there and good revelations and good stuff. So just to let you all know, next Sunday, I will not be doing a live on Sunday. In the United States, that is Labor Day weekend, and I will actually be out of town at a wedding. So it'll be very exciting. So I will be... I might be able to put a couple videos together before I leave, but then I'll be away and I'll come back. But next weekend, I will not be doing a live. So anyways, brothers and sisters, it's wonderful to be with y'all. Sing, Brother Mark. Sing. Maybe I'll get some tracks and I'll sing with y'all. And we'll, in live episodes, and we'll sing our way out, right? We'll do some polka songs. Those of you that old school Pentecostals, you would know that, right? Like when I was saying the verse, arise and shine, it's in my head. Arise, shine, for your light is come. Arise, shine, for your light is come. And the glory of the Lord is risen. The glory of the Lord is come. The glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. So that's the cool thing about growing up in the church is, you got some goofy religious legalism that creeps in there and you got to get healed and well. But there's scriptures that stay with me. And when I get renewed, I'm like, oh, that's what that's saying, at least right now in my journey. That's really cool. So anyways, be loved, everyone. And if this has been a blessing, support the broadcast. Go to markdejesus.com and help this brother from another mother and support the work. Share it with others and allow it to be a blessing for their life and for their journey. And if you want to, I'm just taking a quick glance through the questions. If you want to submit questions, markdejesus.com/questions. I can't promise that I can get to all of them, but I do my best to try to really work through the ones I can work through. That, especially if I feel like a lot of my assessment is when I think that people who are listening can also benefit. And that's when I go, I got to jump into this. This is great. So anyways, be blessed, y'all. Be loved. I love you. And I'll see you soon.